Our games are famous for choices and consequences, for mature storylines, and for this grim and gritty mood in the universe of The Witcher, basically. And all those things we want to bring to Gwent as well.
If you've played The Witcher 3, you've probably heard of Gwent. Either you avoided it like a plague, or you ended up sinking just as much time in the minigame as you did with the main game. If you played it as much as I did, then you probably already know that CD Projekt Red is developing a standalone free-to-play game. But if Gwent is just as foreign to you as the Korath Desert, here's a little lesson. Gwent is a card game based on a game in the book called Barrel. The minigame was first introduced in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and it relies on bluffing and resource management. At the start of the game, you draw 10 cards, and unless you have a card that allows you to draw more, this is going to be your hand for the remaining rounds. Similar to card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, players collect cards and build decks that cater to a certain strategy. In The Witcher 3, players could eventually pick from 5 different decks, each with different playstyles. What's immediately noticeable is how much cleaner the UI looks. Those who played Gwent in The Witcher 3 will still feel at home, but everything has a fresh coat of paint on it. The board is more stylish, the cards look sleek, and more detail has been put into the animations. What's also noticeable is how the Nilfgaard deck is missing. It will be coming eventually, but as of now it still needs more tweaking and balancing.
I'll manage. Don't you fret.
Card games are difficult to balance in general, and Gwent was done basically for the single player only, because as you pointed out, in Witcher 3, basically you fought only AI, right? So it didn't have to be well balanced against the other players.
But Gwent isn't just a single player game this time around. One of the main draws to the standalone game is online multiplayer, and as I'm sure you know, balancing for a multiplayer game is a whole nother ball game.
A word once given will never break.
We had to rebalance everything. We had to add a lot of abilities, because a lot of cards in Witcher Wild Hunt were just pure value cards. We had to add rules to the deck building, because you might remember in Witcher Wild Hunt you could put all your hero units in your deck, and that could have been your deck, right? While they are resistant to most effects from the cards and the effects on the board, you know, it makes it kind of boring that basically both players only play heroes. So basically we limited this to 4 right now.
Even though each faction has a different overarching strategy, there's still plenty of room for experimentation.
The monsters, for example, there are cool decks built around weather that summon units to the board when you play weather and they get stronger and so on. But also there are decks that focus on Wild Hunt, for example, like putting a lot of them, making them stronger, copying them even, like swarming your opponent basically with Wild Hunt.
I found another example of this in the Skellige deck. One way to play the deck is with your graveyard in mind. There are a number of cards that buff depending on how many cards are in your graveyard, and there are certain cards that double in strength when they are resurrected. If that's not your style, there are also plenty of Skellige cards that increase in strength the longer they're on the battlefield. One card in particular even transformed into a hero after staying alive a turn. These playstyles aren't exactly new when it comes to card games, but because Gwent relies so much on resource management, sending a precious card to the graveyard hoping that it will pay off later ups the risk and reward.
Semper Fi!
As much fun as Gwent is, I think what has me most excited for this game is the story mode. CD Projekt Red is known for their stories, and Gwent is no different. Ultimately, Gwent has 5 different campaigns for each of the factions.
Basically the idea is to make separate campaigns for each and every one of them. So you will play a different protagonist in every one. And every one of those is tailored uniquely around this specific faction.
The developer is still tight-lipped on the specifics, but they will feature mature storylines that we've come to expect, difficult and morally gray decisions, and characters we've come to love. In the slice of the campaign I saw, we played as Geralt, exploring an open area, interacting with towns and ruins in order to meet new characters, collect cards, and of course, battle opponents. Interestingly enough, you won't only be playing as the White Wolf.
Geralt is not the protagonist this time around, so we get to explore different perspectives when doing these campaigns. You know, we can present you with different kinds of choices than you would have in the Witcher games, because again, some things Geralt would never do. But some of our characters that we use as protagonists for this one, basically they have totally different perspective on things.
Cards in the single-player campaign are more than just cards you stumble across. The cards that you find and earn along the way are intertwined with characters and events.
The card battles are symbolizing the actual battles in the game, right? So contrary to Wild Hunt, where you basically those were card games and you were winning cards from these people and so on. And here it's more like I said before, they are joining your army and it's like they symbolize actual people. And to some degree you can also talk with them because some of those characters are important and you might want to uncover their plot lines and you might want to know more about them and so on.
However, only the first campaign will be available at launch, but the rest will follow as paid expansions.
Not your lucky day.
So is Gwent for you? If card games aren't your thing, then maybe not, but I wouldn't write it off entirely. CD Projekt Red has high ambitions for this free-to-play card game, and if you're aching to spend more time in the Witcher universe, then this game will definitely be worth your time. Unfortunately, there isn't a release date for Gwent, but the closed beta kicks off on October 25th, so make sure to sign up for that. For more on Gwent and The Witcher, stay tuned to GameSpot.